Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another brilliant, trustworthy podcast. I've got a really special guest with us today, Brian Schwagerl, and we're going to kick off by handing off to him. Brian, we're so happy to have you, and we can't wait to hear about your trustworthy journey. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you, Christina. I am a clinical assistant professor at NYU, the Schack Institute of Real Estate. I run the undergraduate program here, and I teach courses and have about 250 students under my responsibility in the undergraduate program. I was a real estate executive for a number of companies, including Hearst and NBC, under major real estate projects there for both of them involving corporate headquarters. Had worked as a consultant on environmental consulting before I was asked to join the graduate program at NYU and then take over the undergraduate program.
Wow. So it sounds like you've had quite a career in the space of real estate, but very much so in mentoring and helping to grow young people and helping them to shape their careers. That takes a lot of trust. So I'm very interested to learn more about how trust has shaped your journey and how you've utilized trust to help to bring others through their career journeys.
Sure. Well, I think trust can be earned, but I also think it's a product of how you're brought up and the kind of morals and values that you have and that you bring to the workplace, including transparency, being open and honest, and then how your personality comes through in terms of interacting with people, asking everyday questions not only about their work, but also about their family life, having good listening skills, actually enjoying the people that you're working with, and building a community. So it's a lot of time that you spend with people, particularly in a work environment. And the culture that helps cultivate a fun work environment, I think, helps you build trust and actually helps you be more productive in the workplace.
I love that. Brian, what I'm really curious about when you talk about culture and how you show up and how you build trust, is that something that you developed over time? Is it something that you played with and used certain techniques and tried certain things that ended up working or didn't work? Or is it just who you are? Because you talked a little bit in the beginning, like it's how you were raised. So is it who you are? Or is it something that you develop?
I think I've learned over time that it is one of my strong skill sets, so I can lean into it. But I do think that building trust in the workplace is just so important today in terms of a sense of security and confidence, particularly with younger people. And when you're involved in construction projects, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of workers that are working underneath you in a variety of different manners, whether it be design, construction, project management, engineering. You can't be an expert in all those areas, but over time, you learn how to bring out the best in people, to give them your best work, and that happens over them developing a sense of trust with you, understanding what your needs are so that they can help you fulfill them. Even the sense of integrity, if there's something that goes wrong, not feeling that you're going to jump all over them, but learning from mistakes, and then building a team so that you know your teammates and that you're all working on the same project together and have a sense of pride for it. So I think over a series of multiple projects, I realized I was very good at building teams and at putting pieces of the puzzle together and empowering people to give me their best and being a magnet towards good talent, and then having them show me how best they do their works and having gratitude for them to be part of my team and lending their talents to build a product that we can all be happy about.
Right, you've just mentioned so many incredible things. And so I got really excited when you started talking about unlocking potential because for me personally, that's where I really believe trust plays a huge role is unlocking that potential and giving opportunities for everyone to thrive, right? To come from a place of abundance and saying like let's just help to unlock potential across the board and work as one team. Um, it makes me so happy to hear you say that.
Well, it doesn't help anyone if you're off in different directions. You really have to come together. When I was working on NBC, there were so many projects that needed to be completed in order to get the programs on the air. And there were multiple deadlines while programs were still running at 30 Rock. So you had the Today Show, the Nightly News, CNBC, MSNBC. You had the Olympics. You had Saturday Night Live. And you had construction going on at the same time and multiple hours late in the evenings and on weekends. And there was always a fear if you cut the wrong wire, you're going to bring the whole network down. So you had to have trust in the people that are working with you to get multiple projects done. That you come together as a team, meet deadlines, and work with people who are going to assist you to prioritize their work to actually get a job done.
No, you're spot on. And I think one thing that's interesting to me is, you mentioned working across multiple different work streams. And today, the workplace is so generationally diverse, so many different generations represented in the workplace. And so I'm curious to kind of dig into that a little bit more. Is trust developed differently across different generations in your perspective, in your experience?
Well, I do think since I deal with young people today, which keeps me young, but I do think that they've gone through not just one, but several crises, the pandemic being one. So this current graduating class of college students didn't graduate high school. They lost their graduation from high school due to the pandemic. And due to the unrest on campuses, it's quite the possibility that they may not have a graduation on several campuses this year. And I think that's sad in the sense that you can't celebrate a very big part of your life, a part of moving on, but also it indicates a different way that trust maybe is broken or a sense of fear takes place, a lack of confidence that you can move forward when there has been a hesitation to move forward. In both those cases, there was a hesitation to move forward, really decided by others, not necessarily even by themselves. So I think that sense of impact on their self-confidence, on their awareness of how the workplace exists, their lack of a transition that is a little more smooth is troublesome. But I think that generationally, that's the greatest gift that both older and younger people can give to each other in terms of the vast differences in technology that exists and an understanding of how to use it to your advantage, particularly as we move into AI, and then how to make the most of those opportunities, not the least, and building a sense of trust in the workplace and a sense of mentorship between older and younger people, I think, is essential to any successful company.
This is such an important conversation because I think we are all generationally going to be working with those that have come out of these milestone, pivotal moments in their life. I saw somebody at one of the universities talk about how they really might not be able to have their graduation this year. And it was heartbreaking because they didn't have their graduation from high school either. So how is a leader, how is somebody that, let's say, that ran all these projects for your former employers, how do you deal with that? How do you take this generation and start creating trust? Because you all have jobs to do. We still have to deliver. It has to go well. You can't have that cord cut to take down an entire organization. What do you do with the kids coming out today, and how do you build that trust?
I think you start with empathy, an understanding of where they're coming from, an understanding that there's sadness that they didn't get to have the same type of celebrations that you might have had, but then an awareness that they've developed a different toughness or a different type of ability to communicate that you need to be more attuned to. Now, that doesn't mean it's the best form of communication, but understanding how to communicate differently by way of text, or understanding one of the things that I cultivate in the classroom, and I ask my professors to cultivate as well, is a better sense of communication, the ability to write, the ability to write full sentences and not just jargon, the ability to stand up in front of a room and be able to tell your story, not only where you're coming from, what is your elevator pitch, but also being able to communicate what it is that you're achieving, whether it's in a sense of project that they may be presenting or in a paper that they may have written, because it's very important to develop those verbal as well as nonverbal skills. And I think that they have changed dramatically given the fact that a younger generation, but not exclusively a younger generation, is attached to the phone at all times. And, instead of watching movies in a theater, we'll follow YouTube, will, understand TikToks that will communicate things to them, whereas older generations may not even have a TikTok account, or, is all for closing down TikTok because they find it to be a conspiracy, a tool of China. So it's a whole different world that you at least have to talk through those things to understand where things are going. The other issue is that, and this carries through to the workplace, is we are in a very polarized country right now. So the idea of left and right, or Zionist versus Palestinian rights, is an issue that is not going to go away, is sort of embedded in things, and we have to learn how to kind of talk through them, or be able to dance a delicate dance around them, um, because we have an upcoming election, and all of those things flow through to the economy in terms of jobs, in terms of interest rates, in terms of being able to afford a home, in terms of, transportation issues in and out of work. So if we ignore those political problems, we do to our own detriment. But we should be able to find a common ground where we'd be able to accept that certain things need to be addressed, and need to be addressed in a mature manner.
I met somebody when I was in Croatia a few weeks ago, and she was in college. She was, I think, a junior or senior. And she really talked about how she didn't trust any institution or anybody. And she's actually from Poland. And so what, she wasn't even American, she wasn't American, but that she didn't trust any leader, any institution, any organization. And I met her where she was, and I had that conversation. What I loved about what you said just now is, in order to deal with the bigger picture and all these complex issues, you started out with empathy. And you started out with really understanding your student or your employee, and aligning and really coming to them where they are, not trying to impose something from top down, and then work them through some of these issues, listen, talk through, communicate. And that's what I did with this woman. And at the end, we hugged, and she told me she didn't know half of what I told her. But I met her where she was, and I didn't try to change it. And I think that's part of what your message is.
Well, I think also in terms of big teams at work, not everybody has to be an expert in finance. Not everybody has to be an expert in project management. Not everybody has to be an expert in design or construction, or, we all come to it from different strengths. And when you're more attuned to what that person's strength is and can lean into
Right.
it, a happier environment will happen. And, eventually you can expand the knowledge base beyond that, as a sense of trust, takes place gradually. And it's important to also be extremely inclusive, to have everybody involved, a very diverse team involved, because you get different opinions that way. And from getting different ideas, different opinions, and being open to them and listening to them, you can get a better product at the end.
Yeah. I think one thing that I'm hearing as well, and confirm whether I'm hearing the right thing, is that trusting someone does not mean agreeing and aligning with everything and agreeing with everything all the time, or aligning on everything, or having the same perspective. Trusting someone is the taking the step and being comfortable enough to communicate rather than being in agreement all the time. Is that right?
Oh, I definitely agree. Unfortunately, we don't allow enough time to build trust gradually. Sometimes we're a little too fast in our opinions. Sometimes we're a little too fast in, pushing someone aside. Sometimes people need to admit that they lack knowledge or experience in a certain area, but they're willing to learn in the right environment. And again, some of that comes, if you're younger, out of a fear of wondering if you bring that up, are you going to be accepted? But I think that transparency and being able to communicate where you're at is very important in terms of building that trust.
I hear you on that. I think there was this huge shift around the rise of the expert or the rise of the thought leader, where there is fear now around being perceived as someone that doesn't know everything. And I can hear that as you're speaking as well. I'm curious to see how that translates to the world of work. How can an employee, regardless of generation, um, best communicate to an employer or a manager that they don't know, if there's no trust?
Well, there are certain things that you could do to build trust. First of all, show up at work. I think, being online all the time is not the best way to find a mentor, to show your willingness to participate. Show up early and stay late. Those are the ones that do best in the workplace. Snuggle up against a mentor, move your best forward, sit at them next to meetings, ask questions, participate in office activities. These are all different ways that you earn trust over time. By the same token, this is how you lose trust. If you're, for example, before I built the Hearst Tower, I was president of the local chapter of the National Association of Real Estate Executives. So I had exposure to what the top office places across America or across the world were like. But I also participated in the chapter's local activities, fundraising, like dinner committees. And through those dinner committees, you learned who you could trust and who you couldn't trust. If a person said they were going to buy a table or they were going to help you out with the invitations or they were going to secure flowers for the table, etc., but then they didn't produce, they've lost your trust. So it was very easy then when you're outsourcing gazillion dollars worth of work to understand that that particular mover or that particular contractor or that particular furniture dealer is not someone that will ultimately deliver, because in those informal settings, you've already learned that you can't trust them.
Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it in order to earn that trust. How much of that has to do with self-confidence? You have to know what your capacity is. You have to know what your expertise is. You talk a little bit about self-trust, self-confidence, and how you have to know who you are in order to show up and build that trust.
I think even the most confident people need to boost their own confidence every once in a while. In interacting with 20 somethings now on a very regular basis, it's mind blowing to me how much of what I have to do is to build their confidence. They have remarkable resumes and they get invited to incredible interview opportunities with companies. Yet as they sit in my office and we practice for the interview, there's a lack of self-confidence, that they feel like they're being a phony or they're nervous about what they're about to step into, or they're going to discover some great hole in the resume. So I just tell them, you wouldn't be asked to come in for this interview if you didn't already have what they want on the paper. If you're a person that they can develop trust in their office over time. If you're someone who has a level of credibility that goes beyond a piece of paper, And by the way, this is a two-way street. You have to like them as much as they like you. So if you're not comfortable with the person that's asking you the questions on the other side, screw it. You don't need them. Move on. You'll find another job. That's indicative of the problem that you're going to have with them going forward. Build trust can even start in an interview situation over time. Are they interested in more than what's on a piece of paper? And by the way, are you interested in more than how we project our company? You ask me a question, I can then tell you about the culture of my company and what we would expect you to be a part of moving forward in a positive way.
From the other perspective, so we've spoken about that young people that you're mentoring on a regular basis, the lack of self-confidence and the way that that manifests in situations like interviews. I'm also curious to ask you, though, about the role of the employer. What do you think employers don't understand about trust when it comes to onboarding new talent or young talent?
Well, you could paint everyone with a broad brush, where I think each company is different. I think that it's very apparent that there are CEOs or leaders of certain companies that are insisting that people come into the office, that they create places that have certain amenities where people can gather, can get to know each other, where ideas can collide on a staircase as you're moving from floor to floor rather than in an elevator going directly to where you have to get off. You know, I think that we're in a bit of a transition now in terms of what the workplace of tomorrow is going to be. But if we don't figure out how to mentor our young people and also have them co-locate with older people that are going to stay into the workplace longer, where they both can learn from each other, then we're going to lose out in productivity moving forward. The best workplaces are the ones where people get along, build teams, enjoy coming to work, and are having an impact. And the careers that I've helped develop in the world of real estate, there's great diversity there. There's all different types of ways that you can come to work, but you're working on something that's going to be the built environment of tomorrow. And that is something where you can have a great impact. And that is something where innovation is going to take place, and technology tools will make a difference in how we present. And the places that we live, work, and play in tomorrow are going to be completely different than the ones that we have today. And so we need the younger generation to be able to work closely with the older generation to build that sense of trust and a sense of togetherness, because we're all responsible for the world that we're building moving forward.
Wow, I love what you just said. We're all responsible for the world that we're building moving forward. I 100% resonate with that.
If you were to give one piece of advice to our audience and really think about what that would be. So if they were to take one nugget that could make a difference in how they move forward, what would that be around trust?
I would hope the leaders of tomorrow really lean into mentoring young people. They're our future, and I really think it'll make a big difference in how the built environment of tomorrow will be.
Beautiful.
I tell my students, because we have to practice this interviewing, most of their interviewing takes place on the camera. I tell them, remember to put a period at the end of the sentence. Don't keep dribbling on and on. Because they just, they go. Like, you have to listen. You have to find out what the other person says.
Well,
So,
and I think that if I listen to all of the things that that you shared with us today, the one big thing that comes out for me is it's about building relationships. I mean, mentoring somebody is really about building a relationship with somebody so that they trust you. Everything you spoke to was around relationships. It was around showing up to work so that you're together and you build relationships. It's about older and younger generations working together so that you're building relationships and learning from each other. It's about listening and showing empathy that helps build relationships. It all seems to come down to I'm going to trust you and you're going to trust me in relationship with each other.
Yeah, everything you just said, I agree with. So I don't know. So that was fine.
Okay.
Thing I have to point out, Brian, is that you mentioned clarity in communication. And I don't think that we should just like pass over that, because if we're already talking a different language, or if we're just not understanding each other from the baseline, we got no hope of building trust.
Yeah. So one of the things that I often have to do in the classroom is stop the class and say, what did you just say? Because they will use a phrase or a slang or something that is way too hip for me to understand. And they'll start giggling, but then they'll explain it to me. Or same is true with texts, from my own daughters, where there may be some acronym down and I'll say, what was that? And then I have to go to the dictionary of slang to look it up. But by the same time, while I'm lecturing in a classroom, I can reference something. Remember, these kids that I'm teaching today weren't even born in 9/11 or were just born. So you can reference changes in city life, in terms of work life, in terms of world life, in terms of global issues that they have no clue about. And you have to slow down and try to stop and explain that if they're interested. And I think what happens is very often we'll just kind of rush through things and not really communicate or stop to admit, I don't know what you're saying. Can you repeat that? And I think that helps build trust over time and helps build communication.
Okay.
Mic drop. Love that.
Yeah.
We go like, ah, around your
Yeah,
face. It's amazing.
the other thing that I often have to say to students is, I've lived a life. It's not over yet, but my life experiences are part of me. And that's the benefit that you get by speaking to me. And that's the benefit that they'll get by speaking to their elders or people who will mentor them in the workplace. There are experiences that can be passed through or that have been learned over time. They don't have to go and have a PST experience themselves to be able to benefit by some feedback or some understanding of how to move forward in a situation. And when you mentor older and younger people together, that's very helpful.
I love that. I do really appreciate you joining us, Brian. And I think it goes without saying, maybe something that's an interesting fact. So I first met you when I invited you to do a panel on the changes of the financial industry and its impact on real estate. And I remember you enthusiastically said, yes, I'm, happy to join throughout our prep sessions each time you showed up. And you were, again, enthusiastic to join, always providing different ideas and different type of questions to unpack. And then during the panel itself, I was just like, this is fantastic. Like, I can't wait to find another opportunity to have Brian come and share information or join the show or something. So thank you, because you've just realized that for me, and that happened like 8 years ago.
Wow.
So I
It's nice.
appreciate
It's
that.
nice to stay in touch with new and old friends. So thank you for inviting me, and I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Perfect. Thank
Thank
you.
you.